What is up, guys? The Strong Boys 19 here, and this is the next album installment to the discography of Black Sabbath. So after my review for Tear, I'm going to dive into album number 16 into the band's catalogue of records entitled Dehumanizer. So Dehumanizer was released in 1992, and this album came out 2 years after the release of Tear back in 1990. So Tear was the beginning of the 1990s period for the band. Now, after the different sounding album of some symphonic, power-driven, orienting instrumentation of an album that was Tear, the beginning processes and works for Dehumanizer did not work out very smoothly to begin with because Neil Murray had left the band, so they replaced him to have Geezer Butler back in the band because Geezer wanted to come back with the guys and they accepted his offer. And speaking of Neil Murray, there's one mistake that I had said from my Tear review when I had said that Murray was present as the full-time bass player for the band from Tear onwards. He was not present for this album nor Cross Purposes, so I apologise. I didn't think that through at the time of that review. So now Geezer's back in Black Sabbath, and Cozy Powell was originally going to be working with the guys, but unfortunately he was put out of action due to a broken bone from a horse riding accident, so they replaced him with a longtime fan and drummer called Vinny Appice, who had worked with the guys with Ronnie James Dio on the album Mob Rules. And speaking of Ronnie James Dio, Tony Martin was still present as the full-time singer for Black Sabbath, but at this time alone, Martin was working on his first solo record called Back Where I Belong, and there was a track that he had worked on with Sabbath called Raising Hell, but it was not used on this album, so Martin eventually used that track on his second solo album many years later. So while Martin was working on his solo album, the rest of Black Sabbath decide to phone up and bring back Ronnie James Dio. So technically, they were working with Dio whilst Martin was still Black Sabbath's vocalist. And I personally think, as much as I am a huge Black Sabbath fanatic, that they've mistreated Tony Martin very disrespectfully. It feels like that they've used him. So I really did not like that at all. Dehumanizer, musically, is a very different album. It's personally, well, like Headless Cross, like a return to form kind of phase on Iommi's songwriting, and there is a lot of these very groovy and catchy doom riffing on this album, some of them that are melodic. Production was done by Reinhold Mack. This album was recorded at Rockfield Studios in Wales, and I have to say, this album's production is one of the best. I absolutely love the guitar tone on here, same with the bass tone that was thick, and the attacking sound on the drums. Musicianship is very, very good, and the lyricism from what Dio had been writing about are on a different type of concept, because on the lyrics from Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules, most of those albums' lyrics dealt with the gods and the religion, whereas with Dehumanizer, it was split into different ways, like individualism to televangelists and the future concepts on computers and technology. And speaking of computers, there's a song on here called Computer God, which opens the track listing to this album, and that deals with worshipping computers as a god, and I really do love Computer God. It is a perfect opening track. There's a song on here called TV Crimes, which dealt with televangelists, and this was a single, and I will have to admit, that the music video for TV Crimes was quite cheesy, at least in my opinion. But TV Crimes is like one of these, yes, still groovy and heavy, but like a commercial kind of sound, especially with Dio writing lyrics in this kind of concept. And there's a song on here called Letters from Earth, and this is one of my big favorites on this album. And the inspiration behind this song was that Black Sabbath fans from all around the globe sent the band many letters, and to really think of an inspiration like that as lyrics, I think that is a pretty cool, neat idea in my mind. This album showcases some of these really groovy yet powerful, energetic sounds of musicianship from the guys. And Time Machine is another one of my favorites. It's quite similar to the lyricism on Computer God, but Time Machine is one of my favorites. It's a fantastic track. There are some underrated gems on this record, like Too Late, which is the only ballad to another excellent song, the closing track called Buried Alive. Dio's vocals on this record alone are at his most ravenous. Some of it just sounds so fearsome and, powerful. He just goes into different types of styles, from his powerful range to his softer cleans. The guitar playing from Tony Iommi is wonderful on here as well. Some firing guitar solos and really great guitar riffage. Vinny's drumming, once again, just like Mob Rules, as brilliant as ever. His drumming style definitely really sets the mood up to continue that aggression with Geezer and Tony. I'll have to say that Dehumanizer is an underrated Black Sabbath album that I really, really enjoy a lot. There's not a lot of people that would say that Dehumanizer is one of the best or better Sabbath albums in their lists, but I think this album is one of my favorites. I think it's a record that deserves respect and credit, like on the other two Sabbath albums with Dio. So with that being said, Dehumanizer is another fantastic album by the band, and let me know what you think of Dehumanizer in the comments below. I'm going to give Dehumanizer by Black Sabbath a 9 out of 10. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll keep you guys posted for more videos in the near future.